right, hello and welcome to another episode of Earthworks Hub. I'm your host, Ivan Orlovic, and today I'm really excited. I've got a guest, Hayden Kinghorn from Kinghorn Excavations. I've actually had the privilege of working with Hayden in the past in a different role, so we'll get to that in a minute, but thank you for coming on the show.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries, thank you. So basically, do you want to just give us a bit of a brief rundown on what you do, what your business is now, and a bit of history?
Yep, yeah, can do. So I suppose, geez, we can talk for a while on this one. I've probably been in the industry now for about 7 years. But kind of going back into it, I mean, my old man was a builder slash handyman. So I used to get dragged around sites with him. Back in the day, which I hated at the time. Now I'm kind of very appreciative that he took me around those sites. But I kind of, when I finished school, I went on to do furniture design at RMIT because I was kind of pretty crafty with my hands, I suppose, and I kind of liked using machinery and making stuff out of or furniture out of wood. But so I enrolled into that, and that was going to be my pathway. I ended up actually failing the first year. When things like that happen, it lights this fire that I'm going to come back bigger and stronger. So I re-enrolled in year one, came back, and I just went for it. It wasn't until the last assignment of that furniture design course that they actually said that there's no real jobs. So at the time, I had a mate who was doing building design, and we used to see each other at uni, and he said, "Hey, there's this building." I signed up for that one, and we from there I think I did about 6 months within that. And I didn't want to be this construction manager or in management that didn't have any previous experience. So I ended up actually going on and asking a good friend of my brother's at the time who had a civil business. He was going to uni at the same time. I asked him if I could have a bit of work experience in the civil industry, and he actually, he took me on. I ended up out at a job out in Wollert on a water tank. He's more in kind of oil and gas and water and all that kind of utility stuff. And I went out there and pretty much, I started as a labourer. And then from out there, like I suppose I jumped in my first excavator. I got experience in all sorts of earth moving equipment, and I suppose I ended up working for him, well, on and off. Like, it's Levi from Adam's Earth Movers, but he's probably been my mentor. He's probably taught me a lot in this game, but he ended up, teaching me a lot of what I know, and I worked for him for quite some time. So that was pretty much my start of getting into the industry. I was still doing the building course at the same time, and I ended up going on to do construction management. But I suppose I kind of fell into that civil working for Levi, and I never really got out of it. I was still working in hospitality at the same time on the weekends as well. And my actual dream was to work for multiplex still, but I don't know, as soon as you get that feel for excavators or you get into earthworks, I don't know, there was this like hold that kind of didn't let go. And it's a bit of a funny story. I was working at the Mount Pub. It was one Sunday night, and it was just me and the manager. And there was these people up there spending an absolute fortune. And long story short, we got to the end of the night. So they asked for a lift back to their accommodation, and I said, "You're kidding me." But my manager said, no, go for it. And I don't know, I've always liked to ask questions, I suppose. So I asked,
Yeah.
I ended up with, yeah, I had a full car. And I just said, oh, what are you guys? Like, you rock up on a Sunday night, you spend $1,000 over the bar. Like, you get kicked out at midnight. Like, who are you? Doctors? And they said, oh, we're engineers. Why do you ask? And I said, oh, I'm, studying construction management. I work for my mate at the moment who's got a civil company. And it just happens to turn out that they worked for WBHO. And that I had pretty much the senior management team in my car. And they ended up, I got a business card, and kind of going on about, a year later, there was a bit of a delay. They just won the Western Roads project. I ended up with a job as a junior estimator. So I worked on some seriously big tenders there. So I worked on some seriously big tenders there. And I got to the point where that kind of, I still talk to people about it today. It's, you can either sit at a company and be there for 10 years and your pay grade go up slightly, or you can just jump. And I kind of wasn't getting looked after financially too well. We had a great team on Project 7, and I learned a lot of. Well, I'm kind of where I am now. Partly, a lot of that's come from those guys that I learnt under, but I just got to the point where the amount of work I was doing, and I suppose the finances just weren't matching up. So I ended up deciding to go out there and look for another job, and that's where I ended up at Rokon, and that's how we met.
Yeah, that's
So
right. Yeah.
yeah, so I remember joining Rokon, and the interview all went well, and I was stoked to kind of get into. Although I learned so much from WBHO, the most I did was just NDDing. Um, there was never any heavy civil because it was still in the design phase. So going to Rokon where we've got,
Yeah.
70-ton excavators, we've got dump trucks, we're building massive wetland subdivisions, there's small excavators, there's dozers, scrapers, like that for me, who is just growing, at least love for civil is growing, was huge. I was running a number of projects, and for me, you probably would have seen several times. I know definitely out at Hopkins Road. Like I still, because I had that machine operation background, I did love jumping in machines every now and then.
Yeah.
And then kind of going on from there, I ended up getting to the point where I suppose look, subdivisions for me, although that like there was a lot of heavy earthworks, subdivisions for me wasn't quite, I suppose, where I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be on something that was a bit more kind of, I don't know, not exciting, but just a bit more, just probably a bit
Do you think
different.
less repetitive,
Yeah,
maybe?
less repetitive. So I kind of, a mate of mine at the time that we roughly just spoke through Instagram, and we got talking, and I ended up, he put forward, um, an offer, a pretty attractive offer, doing a series of a bit of private work, a subdivision. We had a big winery that we were doing, which was one of a kind, and some warehousing
Right.
stuff,
I remember
and
seeing that on.
yeah. So
Yeah.
St Hubert's Winery. So I joined Pac Civil, pretty much as a project engineer, and yeah, I mean the first job was we had a subdivision, which I suppose it was a little one, but my experience was pretty helpful on that subdivision. And then our second job was St Hubert's Winery, which during all the curveballs that COVID threw at us, and it kind of kept us going out there for probably 2 years. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out, and kind of I ended up kind of going my separate ways, which kind of comes about to where I kind of thought, well, maybe it's time to start my own company. Um, so I suppose that's
Yep.
kind of where Kinghorn Excavations kind of was born, I suppose, when I went a separate way. And yeah, it's funny how I've kind of gone from like WBHO down to Rokon, down to Pack Civil, and then down to my business. And a lot of
Yep.
people ask me like, "Oh, don't you want to get massive, be this huge civil contractor, like massive jobs, heaps of staff?" And for me, it's like, no, I couldn't think of anything worse because I've been at the top and I've worked my way down. And for where I am right now, I would prefer to just have me, to be honest with you. But obviously, the more you grow with clients, the more people you've got to get on. But yeah, I'm kind of happy sitting where I am at the moment. You know, maybe 3 to 4 blokes would, for me, or 3 to 4 blokes, girls, that would kind of be where I'd want to be. So yeah,
Yeah. If I can add to that, just yeah, I was in the same boat. You know, I thought the same thing, because in our industry, unfortunately, everyone judges you by how much equipment you have, or you know how big you are. Because the first question is always, "Oh, how many machines you got?" You know,
yeah, literally, yeah,
and then
yeah,
when you say you've got a few machines, they're like, "Oh yeah, you must be doing all right." But if you say, "Oh, I'm just on my own," they're just like, "Oh, okay, he's just small." But
yeah,
I scaled up and went. You know, I had 8 or 9 machines, 8 or 9 guys, and thought, you know, I'm going to be getting bigger and doing all this stuff. But then you soon enough start to realize that you don't know if all that headache's worth it. You know, like are you actually making any more than if you were working on your own?
yeah, 100%.
And I sort of I came to that realization, and then I've scaled back down,
Yeah, yeah,
and now I'm at your level. Like I'm just sort of on my own and just freelance, do my own projects, work for people here and there, and do odd jobs with just minimal machinery. And
yeah,
if I need people, I just subcontract someone in, or something like that. You know, just
yeah, yeah,
but it's for me it's a lot easier too. So I definitely hear what you're saying.
yeah. It's well, that's where I just look at it. It's like, I've created. I think this whole industry is kind of built on relationships, and I've made a lot of great mates over kind of my journey. And I think the way I look at it is, yeah, because it's right you say, like, I speak to a lot of clients and they're kind of like, oh, like even a foreman, like you rock up at a new job and the foreman goes, oh, what machines have you got? And I kind of feel embarrassed to say I got a 1.8 ton excavator, a 5 ton, and a truck because it's a big civil job. And
Yeah,
they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, but I always say that, like, got I've got like, obviously I use ProEquip a fair bit, so I can get any machine I want. Or I've got people
yeah,
like, I've got like Levi for me. He's got all the big excavators. He's got all the GPS. He's got the dozers, the graders, the graded blades on the 299. He's got that stuff that I can kind of reach out. He's got the manpower as well that I can reach out and we kind of work in together. And there's other guys
yeah,
that I can call on as well. So it's this perfect kind of happy medium. I don't have a million guys. I don't have all this machinery, but I can still kind of sit around those kind of medium-sized commercial jobs and get the job done and be able to call on people to kind of help me get it done as well. Um, which
yeah,
I,
yeah. That's it.
for
That's
me, for everything I've learned, and you've probably learned it along the way, man, it's just about managing stress in this industry. It's just,
it is.
you can get yourself
Well,
so
I,
stressed up. Yeah, what were you going to
yeah.
say, Sarah?
Oh no, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, there's nothing worse than, and something I don't miss, because I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I was saying that I don't miss that stress at 5, 6 in the morning, thinking, oh, who's not going to come in today?
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
you know what's the day got in store for me?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what machines are going to break down today? What's going to prevent me from finishing a job today. And it used to be the the biggest point was in the morning. I used to feel sick in the morning, thinking,
Oh,
"Oh
100%.
man,
Yeah,
who's not coming in today? Which
yeah,
customer am I going to disappoint first? Who do I have to
yeah,
go and change and move machinery around with?
yeah, 100%. And that's
So I
why,
hear you. I definitely hear.
yeah, and I think that's just why, like, my kind of, I suppose my goal going forward for me is to just, whether that's, for personnel, the machines I've got now, and maybe, a few bigger, a 15 and a posi track, and then keeping it around that kind of medium size for me. And if anything gets too big, I can call in subbies. I think that's important. That's where I see my growth.
Yep.
And yeah, I think, my partner, she wants to see me grow like that. My family want to see me grow like that as well. Because at the end of the day, it takes a toll. And there's a lot of mornings where you wake up at 4 o'clock, kind of going, are they going to rock up? Is this going to go to plan? Did I cancel that? Is that going to work? Is it going to rain?
Yeah.
You've got 400 ton of rock coming. If it rains, your subgrade's ruined. Yeah, so I think it's just, for
Yep.
me, it's about keeping it manageable. Um, and just
Yeah.
it's
I
good
agree.
having a chat to you. It's good, chatting to Nate from D2D, Levi from Adams. Talk to them fairly regularly, and we kind of just have these, kind of like you said, therapy sessions where we just kind of talk about where we're going, and it's good to reflect because it kind of
Yeah.
keeps you
Well,
in check of, I can say to no, so I can say to Levi, hey, I've got this coming up, and they can be like, ooh, that's a bit big, or like, how have you thought of that? And it keeps you in check. So yeah, I think
it
even,
does.
us
It
having this
does.
chat here is, we're reflecting on, yeah, where we want to go to and kind of keeping ourselves in check. So
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what the podcast is about. Just keeping all of us in check. Everyone can communicate, share from our other people's experiences, and let's see that we're not alone. We're all in the same sort of boat, and we can work on it together. So,
yeah,
yeah, no,
100%.
definitely good to chat like this.
Yeah.
Hmm. No, that's good. That's a good rundown. What was your first job on your own? Was it, and how did you get it? Did you have to advertise, or did you just know someone that was sort of in the field and got you in there?
So I suppose the first job for me was out of my own, which kind of came about. So luckily, I bought my first machine, which was the 1.8 ton Volvo. I bought that while I was working at Pac Civil, so I was on a salary, just because I had a whole lot of weekend work. Because my parents were like, kind of grew up in Woodend. Everyone's got farms. People want driveways. They want this. They want that. I was always hiring equipment on weekends. I think I did a driveway, and I think I hired one of your 5 ton excavators back in the
Yeah,
day.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of got to the point where I was like, I'm on a decent salary. Yeah, let's buy a little 1.8 ton excavator, and then I'll be able to, that's my excavator. I'll be able to house it up at mum and dad's. And then I'll just go around doing, weekend jobs, which kind of, that was a plan. And then I was like, oh, I'll do a bit of dry hire as well. So I just kind of created a bit
Mm.
of I think it was just in Google. I think I was with iSeek Plant as well. And this guy, Mark, hit me up from Brooklyn. He's kind of like in property maintenance, does bathroom renos and stuff like that. And at the time where, I suppose, I was probably out the door of Pack, he was doing a house extension. He had to do a raft slab, but
Yep.
they were proper deep footings. And he had hired my 1.8 probably for about a week or so, prior to me leaving Pack, and then he hit me up and was kind of like, "Hey, like, I'm ready to do my slab." So it was kind of, yeah, I fell into my first job.
Yeah.
and I probably spent probably a week or so there, digging this raft slab because it was just super tricky because the subgrade out there was pretty bad, so we had to dig down fairly deep. And then I ended up kind of just
Yeah.
helping him. We did it in two sections, so I think some of the beams were, I think, about 1.5 meters deep in some areas. So I actually ended up just like
Hmm.
I dug them for him, and then I helped him put the Rio in, and then I helped him pour them. And it was kind of that, just like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm out of my own now, so I just got to kind of do everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, I did that for a week or so, and he was great to talk to as well because he had his own business, and he he had some great pointers for me for, like, it's he thinks back to it when he was in my shoes, and he's like, mate, you'll get to Friday at 2 p.m. and you will have nothing lined up for the next week, and you start stressing. But
Yes.
3 p.m., all of a sudden something comes in. And so he had all these great little kind
Yeah.
of pointers for me, which I still think about um, to this day. Um, so yeah, I started with
You know
him,
what?
and
He's
he's on the money with what he
sorry. I was going to
said.
say he's definitely right. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, keep going.
yeah, no, he's definitely right. Yeah, I was going to say he's definitely right because I know that one of the other things with our field is that you don't know what you're going to be doing from week to week or even day to day sometimes, especially if you're on like short term projects. You might work one day and then have nothing the next, and then 2 days later you've got something else, and then next minute you've got a 6 month project, and then
Yeah,
yeah, it can be very volatile, like up and down, and that's why I always tell, like in one of my other posts
yeah,
on Instagram, and that I said that just don't think that you're going to be working every day when you're in this field, because you've got rain days, you've got days where you get heated off, projects don't start, permits are not ready.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff that we rely on.
Oh, it's just, yeah. Well, like I say to a lot of mates, a lot of family and stuff. It's one big game of chess. And even now for me, say I'm booked out for the rest of the year. But I always say when I'm talking to, my mates that I kind of have, we talk to daily, I'll be like, oh yeah, I got this booked in, this booked in, this booked in, this booked in. And I'm always like at the end, for now. That's probably going to change on Monday. Like I got next week booked in, but that'll probably
Yep.
change tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So, or 7 o'clock. Well,
Yeah.
it's being about, yeah, it's just, I don't know, like I used to be really bad with it. But now I'm getting, I suppose, yeah, I'm getting better at it. And I always kind of recall back to what Mark said that it's, something will always come through. And we've always got guys that, like the relationships that I've made, that I can hit up Levi and say, hey, mate, like I don't have any work next week. Do you need an operator? Do you need a labourer? Do you need someone? And like he's always, yeah, they'll always, whenever it's rarely,
That's
unless
that's
it's
a good
pissing
thing.
down rain, we're rarely going to be sitting at home doing nothing. Um, so,
Yeah. See, you're willing to be versatile though. I think that's important. That you're not going to be saying, "Well, I just want to sit in my machine, and if there's nothing to do apart from that, then I'm not doing it." Whereas you're versatile. You're saying, "Yeah, I'll come out, I'll operate for someone else, or I'll go and
yeah,
help out on the ground if I have to." And
yeah,
that's I think that when you've got your own business, you can't afford to be like stuck in that mindset. Well, this is I'm just here to operate, and that's it. Like you've got to be able to say, well, you know what, I'll jump out and do something else. And it doesn't mean
yeah.
go out and dig all day by hand and do stuff, but you got to be
No,
willing
no.
to do other things.
Yeah, 100%. Like this, I see a lot of people that kind of, they get their machine and they go, no, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to work for anyone else. Like, this is my machine. And it's kind of like, well, at the end of the day, like, I finance all my equipment. The banks, they're not going to, oh, I've got no work for the machine. I'm sitting at home. Well, they don't just put the loan on pause. You kind of, it comes back to that, like, I suppose the grind. Like, it's all about cash flow. It's all about making sure there's money in the bank, being able to pay the repayments,
Yep.
being able to live. Um, yeah, it's all about being able to put fuel in the machine. So, if I have to go work for for Levi for a week operating, obviously I'm going to be making less money, but there's a relationship there as well. But it is what it is. It's what I got to do. So,
Yeah, and we've got to scratch each other's backs too, because there might be
100%.
times where you need someone to operate, and you can get one of your mates to come and help out too. So it goes both ways. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was definitely at times where he might call on me and say, "Hey, can you take one of my guys?" Or, I still use his machine. So yeah, like you said, we scratch each other's back. So it's yeah, it's important. So
It is. It is. What about just going back to the machinery, Nate? So you mentioned you had your 1.7 tonner.
yep.
What else do you have at the moment? And like, do you see yourself getting any more though? I know you're saying you're not that keen to get too much more, but so what have you got now, and what are you thinking about maybe changing around or
So
looking towards getting?
it's- so obviously the 1.8 was my first machine, and then I've got the 5 ton Volvo excavator as well. I've got the Iveco Eurocargo tipper, which isn't a conventional tipper. It's actually like a bit of a freight truck, but it was super attractive to me because I still had the 1.8. I wanted a long body that's with low sides, and just by sheer fluke, this truck came available. It had done bugger all Ks. Was in great nick. I could fit 259 Bobcat or Cat, and 1.8 ton excavator on the truck at the same time. So it's just, yeah, perfect for me. Yeah, it's a juggling act. So we've kind of at the
Yeah,
moment I've kind of pushed that my priority is, to get married and buy a house. And then once we get that sometime next year, then I'll start, probably purchasing a posi track straight away. And
yeah.
other than that, to be honest with you, the
What?
1.8, a 5 ton, the posi track, the truck, and probably a 15 ton excavator would max me out. I'd be pretty happy with that setup. So
Yeah, I think the Cat 259 is a really good machine. I've got a Cat 239,
yeah, yeah,
and I just love. I've had a few posi tracks.
yeah, yeah,
I think out of all of them, though, the 239 I like the 239 because it's still a bit light, so it's
yeah,
light
yeah,
enough to not make too much damage,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's still narrow, so I can sort of fit down narrow things. The 259, I've hired one once,
yeah,
and I remember it had just that little bit more power,
yeah,
bit more of that lift as well, the
yeah,
higher
yeah.
lift, so I could load trucks easier, and I think it was just a touch wider, so I sort of had a wider bucket on it too, so I could do a bit more. But yeah, the cats are really nice machines for posi tracks anyway, definitely.
Yeah, well, that's what kind of before I kind of went off, cooled off from buying one. I suppose I, yeah, I kind of just wanted to trial a couple. So on my Instagram, I had the Hyundai. I took that for a spin. The other day, I've Pack had a Kubota. So I spent a lot of time in a Kubota, which at before I kind of got into a newer cat, I loved the Kubotas because I felt that they're a bit rough and ready, and I don't know, you felt more. It's weird, but you kind of felt more at one with the ground. And there was an old dozer
Yeah,
operator that I learnt off, and I used to watch him out at St Hubert's. He was a weapon. He'd been doing it, you know, for years. And I said, how do you get so good? And he goes, oh, I just feel it through the seat. Because I kind of knew nothing about dozers. I've driven
yeah,
a D6 here and there, but I've pushed a pile. That's about it. Um, but he was so spot on, and half the time he wasn't even running GPS, and he just said, "Look, I can feel it in the seat," and I kind of felt that with like a posi track, like a Kubota. Like you felt like you were more on the ground. But then, as
yeah,
soon as I got in a cat, the ride, the cabin, the everything about it. I think yeah, it spoils you pretty quickly. But obviously, there's a price tag attached to that
yeah.
as well. But end of the day, look, I had someone
So
say to
what?
me, they said, like, if, what are you going to buy, Positrack? Are you going to be spending majority of your time in it, or are you going to be putting someone else in it? And it's like, well, because if you're putting someone else in it, you could buy a Kubota, but if you're going to be sitting in it for all your time, you'd probably want a cat. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Like it's just, I don't know, the ride
Spot on.
quality, like you would know, owning a cat, the ride quality, it's just, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
polished machine. Um, so
it is. I had um I had a Kubota as well, and I had an SVL 75,
yeah,
which is probably what you used. And
yeah,
I love the machine, but I did find it a little bit sort of heavy, and it had the narrower sort of track, so I used to sort of bog in and create a big mess, and a few other things. They were a bit sort of bouncier, and I don't know, they used to rattle a bit more. But I did like how
yeah.
the door would open up
Well, that's the thing.
above your sort of head, so you could get in and out easier.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's a funny thing. I had a 30th recently, and it was a Bobcat up there. It was a 75 horse, but same door as a cat. And I used it as an esky. I put a whole lot of, I had a party and I put a whole lot of beers and a whole lot of ice and stuff in the esky, and it
Oh, I
was,
saw that on Instagram. Yeah, I did see
yeah.
that. Yeah.
But the awkward thing about it was, I had to sit it on the ground, the bucket on the ground, so it wasn't at that perfect esky height because I couldn't get out of the machine.
Yep.
I had to stay in the machine if
Yep.
I wanted the esky up at the right height. So it's one of those things. You just look at the machine like it's yeah, like the Kubota, I love the door, but obviously the way the door is built,
Hmm.
it rattles. So then
Yep.
you get the cat door and the bobcat door, which is nice because it doesn't rattle, but then it's awkward to get in and out at certain times.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just that catch 22, I suppose. But yeah, look,
It is. It is.
I mean, they're probably something that I'm using pretty regularly at the moment. Super handy bit of gear. So yeah, as soon as I purchase a house, it's probably yeah, my next purchase will be a Positrack. That's for sure. Which the new ones have just come out.
And what
So
about what's that?
new
The 259s?
the new cats. Yeah, I think they're 255 now. So they just brought that out. So we'll yeah, by the
Oh, there
time
you go.
I buy a house, I might be the hopefully the supply goes down a little bit with all these um problems at the moment with trying to get stuff in. So yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it's still ongoing from years ago. Yeah, like it
It is.
still can't catch up.
No, and it doesn't. Yeah, like
Crazy.
I thought it would catch up by now, but like cars have cooled off a little bit. The second-hand game, but yeah, like the new car game is still pretty hard and equipment as well. So yeah, but oh well.
And what about technology? If we apart from the machinery and that, like what technology do you use? Do you use like Trimble or any of the GPS or machine controls, or like what do you use out of those things?
Nah, so I suppose like I don't have any. Like none of my machines have GPS on them. I've used GPS in the past. The first GPS system I used was a 66-ton Liebherr out at Atwell. Had Topcon on it as well. When I jumped in that at lunchtime, had a swing in that, and that was
Was
probably
that was that
yeah, that
Rokon?
was a Rokon. That was one of their Liebherr
I
66
remember that
tonners.
machine. Yeah.
Yeah, so it had the Topcon GPS, and can't remember the operator at the time, but I said, "Hey, can I jump in? I've never been in something this big." And it had GPS, and he showed it all to me, and I had a bit of a dig. So yeah, that was the first
Yeah.
GPS system I used.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Do you think you will need it?
yeah, look, I definitely I've used a lot of Leica. Levi uses a lot of Leica. And I like that system. I mean, probably for me, I'd buy a rover. Probably not a machine control or a machine system, but I'd probably buy a rover just for a lot of the civil sites I'm on. It's just that it's that concept kind of Like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment is, I use Bluebeam, which I'll talk about after this, which is, kind of a software for takeoffs and stuff. So I kind of mark it all out, and then I go off the hurdles or the pegs that the surveyors put in. But just being able to have that GPS rover on site that I can mark my own stuff out, because you know what it's like. Surveyors often put pegs where you don't want a peg to be,
Yeah,
or they get hit because you throw that pile over there and a rock rolls down and wipes out the peg. It's all sorts of things. So for me to be able to have the file there at my ready, to be like, all right, well, this is where this needs to go, to be able to draw a line on the ground, to be measure how much we need to dig down, how much to come back up. I think that would kind of,
yeah,
before that's something that I could purchase, probably outright before I buy a house. That's probably a system that I would probably
yeah,
look towards getting. Just it eliminates having the laser out there. I mean, the laser doesn't lie unless it's not calibrated, but it's yeah.
yeah.
That's probably what my next purchase probably would be to get a GPS rover.
All right. Well, you mentioned this blue beam a couple of times. What is that blue beam? I've never actually heard of it. Is that
Yeah, so
a
pretty much. So
is that like a
Bluebeam.
similar?
No, so I learned about Bluebeam at WBHO. So they use that. I learned about that in kind of their estimating department. Which Bluebeam, it's pretty much a PDF editor. So it's like Acrobat, but it's just a
Yeah,
software that you can open in all your PDF plans, and you can you scale all your plans. You can do takeoffs, whether that's perimeter, area, volume, radiuses. You can pretty much. So say if I take you into how I would quote a job, say I would jump on, say, estimate one, or I would get sent a job by a previous client. I would open up the plans, I would scale them all, and then I use Excel. Nothing fancy there, but it works. So I'd have Excel on one screen and Bluebeam on the other, and I pretty much just go through the plans, and then you'll say if you got your heavy duty pavement there, you mark it all out. It'll give you that area of 1,000 squares, and then I can just go straight into Excel. All right, 1,000 squares heavy hard stand. All right, it's got 300 of capping, 100 of class three, and so on. And then I can work out all my quantities from there. It
yeah,
also, I know with St Hubert's, I used it when I was at PAC as well, because often the time, if you're on a job for so long, the plans will keep getting updated. So there'll be new revs coming out all the time, and with Bluebeam, you can put the old rev in and the new rev, and it'll tell you the difference. Because sometimes the engineer, whoever gives you the plans, will say that, oh, we've changed. There's two more pits there, and we've removed that pit, but there's a lot of stuff they miss as well. So
yeah,
yeah, it's just look, it's a handy piece of software, super handy, and then you can sign, you can fill out documents. It's got everything Acrobat's got, but it does all your. You can pretty much do all your takeoffs in it, and then you can actually download your takeoff into an Excel spreadsheet. So super handy bit of
That's
software,
good. Well,
and it's cheap, $500 for a license. So it's
that's not
actually
bad. Yeah,
not too bad when you get a lot of this, for me to sit down and get a scale ruler out and measure up, because a lot of my projects at the moment are kind of, I suppose, that in commercial, small warehouses. For me to get out and get a scale ruler and work out all the measurements it's pretty time consuming. So
yeah. I do find yeah, quoting can be time consuming. The worst thing is when you don't get the job after all the time you spent
yeah,
on it.
100%. Yeah, we
But
spent a whole lot of time, but yeah, I suppose it's
yeah,
just the nature of our game, isn't it? But
yeah, true. I suppose do you ever go back to do you go back to customers and ask them if you didn't get a job? Do you like go back to them and say like, why didn't I get it, so you can sort of work on
yeah,
improving for the next time, or do you like not bother?
it depends. Some I do, some I don't. Um, But yeah, a lot of the time I do, and it's like the builder I'm working, probably got two main builders that I do the majority of my work for at the moment, and there's one builder that, I'm not at that stage where I can potentially cater for all their work. So I'm happy for them to give out other projects to other contractors, but I still kind of, at least they give me the time to be like, well, yeah, you were a little bit too expensive on this, or your price was good on this one. So there's been a number of occasions where I've put in a price, we've got all the way to the end, and then it's kind of just come from a capability point of view, that I probably can't, it's
Yeah,
just a little bit out of my reach at the moment. But they say, hey, your price is bang on. So still for
yeah,
me, I'm pretty happy with that because it's like, well, I know I'm going to build, get to my kind of full capacity where I can probably take on a bigger job. So at least I know that my price is right. Um, so
yeah,
yeah, look,
yeah.
I go back and yeah, look, it's annoying for, you probably know, with private work, it's a bit annoying. You kind of go back to them and you're like, oh, why didn't I get the job? And they kind of have no idea. Like more your mum and dad builders, they kind of, oh, I just went with
Yeah,
him
like
because
it was cheaper. The other guy was
yeah,
cheaper. That's it.
he was cheaper. But then they call you back and they're like, oh, he actually stuffed it up. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit harder with them. But I find with a lot of the commercial clients, yeah, I do go back and ask about the price. So,
Mhm. So
um,
it seems like you're getting a lot of callbacks from regular customers. So you basically just word of mouth now with those sort of guys, or
yeah, pretty much. So I suppose like from when that job that came through, so I was on IC plant. I use high pages a fair bit to fill in the gaps, which actually,
yep.
you look at those websites like high pages and that, and you kind of go, oh, are they a bit of a
Hmm.
scam? Am I going to get work? High pages, I got a heap of work out of. IC plant, not so much. There's probably a lot of people that
Yep.
would agree with me. But
Hmm.
I, yeah, I use that for a fair bit, but then the way I look at it is it's all about relationships, and a lot of the relationships that I've built over my time working in the industry, a lot of them have kind of, yeah, they've followed my journey and they've wanted to be a part of it. So as soon as I started my own company, a few of those clients have come along for the ride as well, and I've ended up doing a series, a lot of work for them. There's a lot of work still coming up, um, and it's just pure relationship, really. It's just rocking up, having a good attitude,
It
and
is.
getting on with them. And that's,
Yeah.
I see it a lot. A lot of people just say no. If they tell you to do that, like, just say no, I'm not doing that. Which, I get called that I'm too nice, a lot of the time. But at the end of the day, like, they're there, they're paying me. If they want me to do it, I'll do it. Like, yeah, like, I'm not going to be super happy about doing some things, but yeah, like, if it's, I don't know, I've always just had that. I kind of, I look at the relationship in a greater light than just saying no to putting, that bit of concrete in the bin or something. Um, it's so yeah, that's yeah
Yeah. No,
for
it's
for
good. I
me.
think
So
it's
a lot
good to
of,
have.
yeah, keep going. Sorry, keep cutting you off.
Oh no, I was going to say it's good. It's good to have that attitude. I think, yeah, and that's what keeps you coming back. Um, in the
Yeah,
previous
literally.
episode, I was saying that your performance at work is what's going to determine whether they call you back or not. So if you're not willing to do a couple of little things here and there, then you're not going to be expected for them to call you first. They're going to
Oh,
call the guy that
100%.
helps out.
Yeah, because if they call, if I'm on site and they're paying hourly for me and they go, oh, Hayden, can you go put that concrete in the bin? Can you then run over and dig that? Can you go do that? Can you get out? Oh, do you reckon you could just shovel around that? A lot of people would be like, nah, I'm not doing that. Or, oh, just really?
Yeah,
Where it's kind of like, look, yeah, it's not ideal that I have to run around and do all this. At the end of the day, they're paying me, and if I can run around and make that happen, well, then the foreman's going to be like, Hayden was great. I see, he just said, and he went off and did it. And then he came back, and he said, oh, is there anything else you want me to do? And that's end of the day. That's what keeps you working. It's
It
building
does.
those
It does.
relationships with the foreman. If it's the building company's personnel, their labourer, their PM, their engineer, their safety manager. It's just about being a good person, to be honest with you, and just
It
a
is.
bit of a can-do
It is.
attitude. And that's all I've done. I've rarely kind of cracked it on site. I mean, sometimes you have to crack it if it's quoted work. And there's other trades, a couple of times, a couple of school jobs. I've been there doing a courtyard subgrade, and the plasterer keeps driving his cherry picker over your subgrade while you're trying to build it. And it's kind of like, all right, the first couple of times it was all right, but now the sixth time you've told me to F off. I'm probably going to go get the foreman now. And you walk in there and you're like, come on, mate, you need to sort that plaster out because, like, I'm on the clock here.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
contract. He's taking the piss now. So that's where you kind of have to crack it. But at the same time, yeah, I'm not cracking it at them. I'm just trying to keep the program going. And obviously it's about money as well. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
not productive. So you do need to crack it sometimes, but overall, it's just about rocking up, having a can-do attitude, and trying to get things done, really. So,
Yeah. I
so that's
think
where,
I think the
yeah,
relationships is important because yeah, if you look at the current times, I mean, I don't know if you're feeling it as well, but I've been speaking to a lot of mates in the industry, and some guys are saying that from probably around June onwards, it's gone really quiet,
yeah,
and a lot
yeah,
of guys aren't working every day. They're only getting two days a week, 3 days. So there's a big lull going on. All the interest rate rises, all these things are happening. The
yeah, yeah,
slowing down in building and blah blah blah.
yeah,
So I suppose if you've got good relationships, and I think that's what's keeping me going,
yeah.
is that the guys, I'm using those relationships to keep me going. I'm talking to guys that regularly use me and the guys that know that what I'm like, and they'll call me to say, Ivan's all right, he's good, get him in, we'll get him to come work for us. I think it's vital to have a good relationship.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and they're like, yeah, like I suppose, well, you're overseas, I was overseas. We kind of, yeah, I suppose when the lull started, and then we kind of got back, and I started talking to mates again. And I said, yeah, there's a lot of people that aren't working, and I suppose I had a bit of work to go on when I got back with, but it was, yeah, I do see a lot of people out there that are, probably don't have too much work on, but then you hear, because everyone kind of knows everyone, you hear a backstory of, oh, they rocked up to that job and they didn't price this, and then they tried to hit them up for that, or they did price this, and then the client said, can we relook at that rate? And they said, jam it. And there's always a backstory to kind of, oh, all right, well, they may have burnt a bridge with that person. So now when they're sitting at
Yeah,
home, not with a whole lot of work, there's always, yeah, whereas I've always been like that. I've taken stuff off my invoice, um, little things off my invoice. And I've said to construction managers, PMs, I will take this off my invoice if I get a look in on the next job. Because
yeah, yeah,
it's all about that kind of toing and throwing. And I'm happy to do that.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. What
so
about
that's kind
have you ever had to chase payments? I know a lot of guys worry about working on private jobs and that because they always worry about chasing payments, so they stay with plant hire companies only. Like, do you ever have any issues or any stories about that, or is everything been pretty good
um
so far?
well, for me up until about, geez, I can't quite, it would have been July last year, I think. Yeah, probably July last year. Um or maybe it could have been earlier this year, but whenever it was, it doesn't matter. So pretty much all the guys I spoke to in the injury industry had always had someone that hadn't paid them, or they had had someone who had gone broke. And for me, I think I did this private job where he put a whole lot of rubbish in my bin at the end, and I took it to the tip and I put that on my invoice because I said, well, the rubbish isn't free. And then he was like, I'm not paying that, I'm not paying the rubbish, but it was like $50. So I never had
Yeah.
anything significant until, yeah, like Lloyd Group for me went bust. Owed me about 60
Oh
something
yeah.
grand. So that for me was, I was working on a number of their projects. Yeah, it was, roughly 60 grand for someone who's pretty new in business was a
Wow.
massive hit. Didn't really know where I was going to go from there. But at the same time, in this weird way, it felt like I'd made it because I'd finally not been paid. Um, so yeah, it's like I joined this elite level of you're now a business owner in construction because you haven't been paid. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that
That's a
that
big amount. Like for for a lot of guys, that could bury their businesses. You know what I mean? So a lot of guys don't have that sort of money to cover. So
oh, 100%.
you've
And
done well to come out of that.
yeah, well, to be honest, like it probably nearly rolled me as well. Yeah, like I wasn't far off. But luckily, I put a couple of ads out on Instagram, and I met um, a couple of fair few guys like Nath from D2D, Riley from RDH, Levi as well from Adams. There's a lot of guys that kind of just reached out and said, "Yeah, I've got some work for you. Here, do this, do that, do this, do that." I still talk to. Well, I kind of made new mates out of Riley and I suppose Nath that they yeah, we kind of created this bond over what happened to me, and now they gave me work, I give them work. It's kind of all, yeah, it's all kind of worked out for the better. I kind of went back to doing a lot of private work, which private work you can make good money doing, but the jobs, like I said before, the clients can be super annoying. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then luckily. Monaco Hickey came through and took on a couple of Lloyd jobs, which one of them was a big job I got down in Narre Warren. So they ended up paying out my outstanding, which was about 25 grand, and then rolled on my contract. I got a bit of money from some other jobs as well. So I ended up getting a little bit back.
Cool.
But yeah, look, I was still owed a fair portion. But look, I sit about it now. It's like when you get back from Europe and you're kind of going, geez, that that 40, 35 grand that I was owed to me, that would have been nice. But yeah, look, it's
Yeah.
all, I
Yeah.
don't know. You can sit there and cry, which I've done a lot of that, but you kind of just got to put a smile on and
Yeah.
you just got to get after it and just the support that I get from everyone in the game, my partner, my family, to just kind of keep on going when that happened, and everything will be all right. It's just it's huge, and it makes you get out of bed, and I suppose you just kind of going back to when I started and when I failed that first year of uni, that fire, it kind of just stokes that fire up to be like, let's go again, and
Yep.
talking to a lot of people, I was in with probably six project managers. Well, not six project managers, but probably three project managers, a construction manager, and a couple of foremen at Lloyd. Now so say, six
Yep.
staff from Lloyd, they now go to six individual building companies. So that's six contacts at
Yep.
six individual building companies. So, yeah, look,
Well,
I don't wish it
in,
upon
in every
anyone.
bad, there's a bit of good.
Yeah, 100%. So
Yeah.
but look, there was a lot of people that were owed a lot of money. Luckily, I was only about 60 grand, but yeah, Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the nature of the game, especially with interest rates and everything going up at the moment. There's a lot more building companies
Yeah.
going bust. So yeah, and
Yeah.
that's where I
If
kind of just go back to the
if
point.
you
Yeah,
oh
keep
no,
going.
sorry, that's what I was going to say. So if you had to give any advice to someone that was going to start out, what would you sort of say to them?
Well, I suppose that's kind of like where I go back to just kind of like knowing where you want to get to. Kind of staying like because when you start a company, you say yes to everything. Yeah, like I've done a bit of concreting, I did a bit
Yeah.
of pipe laying, a bit of done of that, a bit of landscaping. Often the time you do a lot of landscaping, and then I suppose I found where I wanted to be, and I'm now
Uh-huh.
looking to just stay in that lane and stay in my size range, and just that's kind of where I want to be. So I think that's like to anyone who wants, starting in the industry or getting into the industry or wants to start their own business, it's kind of like, yes, you got to say yes to everything. You've got to trial everything because you might say, oh, I want to
Yeah.
be an earth mover or you're in civil and then you do some landscape jobs and you love landscaping. Like you might get into like electrical work and you love electrical work, like trenching and stuff like that, or pipe laying or something like that. So you got to say yes to
Uh-huh.
everything to kind of understand what you like and what you don't like. And then as soon as you find that, just know how big you want to get, and
Yeah.
put a plan in action to get to where you want to be. And yeah, just stay in your lane. And relationships are key. Relationships are key. A can-do attitude goes a long way.
Yeah.
So that's kind
Definitely.
of
Even if I can add to that, just oh, sorry, I was going to say if I can add to that, just talking to other people in the industry already and just sort of asking their opinions, and a lot of guys will be straight up with you and say, "Oh, don't bother doing that, or you won't make as much money doing that," or
yeah,
you'll find a lot of guys are pretty helpful.
yeah, 100%. And that's asking questions as well. Like it's just asking questions. That's how I've always gone about. Like you know, working with Levi, with in a lot of that oil and gas, I'm always there asking about how the gas system works, how the oil system works, what happens if that was hit, what happens if this, and they're all open to telling you. Like it's not this kind of
Yeah,
hidden secret. So everywhere I've gone, even when I was at Rokon, it was kind of like, oh, why do we do that? Asking the Vic Roads inspector that you probably were there maybe one day that I think I threw my hard hat across the wall. It was one of the days I cracked there that we didn't realise we tried to do two tests on one day. So we tried to put class three down in the morning and then class two later on because we were hit with programs and kind of Vic Roads at the time accepted it because if they say no to the invitation, it automatically classifies as a pass at the time. There's
yeah,
some weird loophole around there. So they said yes and then came out and said, oh, it was never going to pass. So the foreman and I at the time, we kind of, um, we cracked it pretty hard, but it was those little things, just learning that. And then, we had that little speed hump, but we all kissed the mate up after that with Vic Roads and stuff. And I used to ask Vic Roads, oh, why can't you do that? Why can't you do this? Why do you have to accept? And it's just ask. You will get some people along the way
yeah,
that will tell you to F off, but it's the same with machines, jumping in a machine. That's why I jumped in that 70 tonner on my lunch break and I was an engineer. The GM had come out and I'm in a Moxie running dirt around. Like it's just after hours, you know. It's yeah, I don't know, it's just that kind of can-do attitude and
yeah,
just ask questions, jump in machines, just kind of just give it a go. Like, yeah, you will get people that'll tell you to go away, but hey, that's every industry pretty much.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's good. What is there anything else that you wanted to add? Like, is there anything that I haven't really asked or that you were hoping to cover?
Um, oh, pretty much. What do we got? Um, I suppose, yeah, I suppose kind of what I mentioned about with the challenges and stuff, obviously, losing money through a client going bankrupt and stuff, but I know you've touched on this before, stuff getting stolen. Um, I've had my
Yeah,
excavator
yeah,
and you was stolen. I've had tools stolen, recently had truck batteries stolen. Yeah, I think, all these things, it happens with stuff getting tighter and people needing money. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is becoming more and more common. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you've got insurance, it's all kind of secure. Yeah, if it's going to get stolen, it's going to get
yeah,
stolen. I mean, there's not much you can really do. You can't chain it to your bed.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that at the time,
It's
it's horrendous when it happens. Um, but yeah, if you've got everything that you can do ticked off, or yeah, it's just. But it is a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. I know when my excavator got stolen, it was probably the worst weekend of my life. I kind of just sat there, kind of going, "Yeah, I'm going to throw in the business. I'm done. It's all, it's all over." But yeah, once the dust settles, it's kind of. I think you become. I don't know if you can kind of comment on that as well. Like everyone's scared of getting stuff stolen, and then you get stuff stolen, and you kind of just like the other day when I said, "Oh, my batteries got stolen," people were like, "Geez, actually?" And I was like, "Yeah, like it's not ideal. You
yeah.
kind of become immune to it. It sounds weird, but
That's. I was gonna say, yeah. In this industry, you definitely grow a thick skin because some of the people we have to deal with, some of the things that happen to us, like and then like that, like you say, things getting stolen. In the beginning, you get really affected by it, and then sort of eventually you just sort of learn to roll with it, and
yeah,
try not to
exactly.
let it get to you, and just keep moving on. I know.
Yeah, well, that's kind of
But look,
how I
just
look at it. That's
yeah,
how I look at it now. It's kind of just, yeah, it's just, it will happen. But I don't know. It's like that non-payment thing. It's like I've had something stolen now. It's like I'm a business owner now. It's just weird, kind of. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think it's. Yeah, you'll never go unscathed. I don't think something will always happen, but. That's the nature of the beast, and you come
yeah,
back to it all the time. That's running a business. That's why we do it. It's well, running a
yeah.
business. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So there's risk,
Yeah.
there's
I think it's
reward.
almost like
So
yeah. I think it's almost like you've just got to allow for that. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. So you've just got to make an allowance that it will happen one day, and then when it happens, that's it. Like you say, you're part of the club now.
yeah, literally, yeah. So as long as you got all your insurances and stuff, and it is what it is. But no, other than that, it's just I've always I think it's just kind of. Yeah, in this game, having that can do attitude, having a good support network behind you, asking questions. I've found being loyal to suppliers, whether that's
Yeah,
um, through Volvo, pretty loyal towards them, ProQuip for hiring equipment, Kingston EPH for cartage, Reese for all kind of plumbing. I don't know, I've always just had this. Same with my geotech, ground science. I've always got on with, I build a relationship with these people. I build a relationship with Troy from ground science. He looks after me. He provides a great service. Why would I go anywhere else? So
yeah, I agree.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
true.
So that's a big thing about finding some good suppliers and just building a strong relationship and paying your bills and just because I still I talk to Chris from Kingston, I talk to the guys from ProCrep, like I'll call him up about getting some trucks and then we'll just have a chat about my holiday or about where we're going. It's this personal kind of as well, which is important. So yeah, there are
It is.
probably a couple of
Yeah.
things I can add. It's just having some good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, you seem to be definitely going full steam ahead still, and you got your head sort of set in what you want to do. Obviously got your wedding coming up, and those other personal sort of things as well. So you know not to push things too far, you know, and get yourself in so much debt and stuff that you can't do your own things as well, you know. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think it's. I agree. I couldn't agree more. Having a balance, work-life balance, is very important, especially when you know you're running a business, and then you know you're doing your own paperwork and your quotes and physically out there operating and doing everything. It can take a toll, you know. And then if you don't have a break, and I have to admit, my wife's been actually really positive on that note. She tells me we're going on a break. That's it. You need a break. She'll organise something and say we're going away, and then at that moment I'm hating it, going, "Oh, how am I going to finish these jobs?" And I've got all this stuff coming up. But then when I go away, I thank her for it and go, "You know what? If you didn't do it, it would never happen. It would never. I'd be always saying, oh yeah, we'll go next time or tomorrow." So yeah, you do. You need a break. You do need a break. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, good. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, that's like me now. I've downsized so much that I don't even have a truck at the moment. And people say to me like, "Oh, how do you go about moving your machines? And what about this and that?" And I always say, "Well, now I look at it in another way. Now I'm giving a float company work. I'm giving other mates with trucks work because when I need a truck, I call on them. So I'm sort of giving back at the same time, you know. So I've gotten rid of a few overheads, but I'm actually helping others as well. So I think it works both ways. Mhm. Yeah, it does. It does. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, you know. I want. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yep. No, that's good. Yep. No, that's good. Hopefully everyone else will see it the same way. But yeah. Well, look, no, look, it's been a really interesting chat, and I really appreciate your honesty and openness. You know, you've been very straightforward and open with everything, and hopefully people can learn from your experiences. And you know, if they ever want to follow you, where can people sort of find you? Like, what are your socials or your website, and that you can mention those if you want. Yeah. Yeah. I've yeah. I find that a lot of people say to me, like, because with Eagle One Industries, my business, I do a lot of posting on Instagram, and then my kids really got me onto TikTok and all these other things. And then people say, "Oh, why do you do it? You know, and have you actually won any work out of it?" And I always say, I probably haven't won that much work out of it, but a lot of it keeps people in keeps me in people's minds. So I've had occasions where I post something and then an old customer will ring me and go, "Hey, I saw your post the other day. You still got that posse track?" And then they'll call me and say, "Are you free next week?" And then so it sort of does work, in some way. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It can be time consuming. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. No, no worries. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming onto the show, and good luck with your business as well. No worries. Happy listening, and we'll see you in the next one.